Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, straight up conversations with me, Moshe Popack. Each week I chat with pioneers, innovators, and truly inspirational people to learn the steps they take to turn their ideas into reality. My goal is to empower you to dive in, be bold, and take profound steps toward realizing your own potential. Joining me this week is Brett Chan, a stunt coordinator, fight coordinator, and second unit director in Hollywood. Brett's done stunt work for The Last Samurai, the Twilight series, the new mega hit show Warrior, and many more projects. He'll share his journey in the TV and film industry and what a lifetime of martial arts has taught him. Next.
This is Common Denominator, straight up conversations with Moshe Popack. Now, here's Moshe.
Hi, Brett, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Moshe. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
So, Brett, first of all, congratulations on Warrior. It's been picked up for a third season, and you're the fight and stunt coordinator for it. For people that don't know, tell us a little bit about that show.
So Warrior was basically written by Bruce Lee in the early 70s, and he developed it and he pitched it to Warner Brothers, and they declined it. After that, then they kind of made something called Kung Fu afterwards, which with David Carradine. So the actual original scriptures of it all kind of went lost. Shortly afterwards, Bruce Lee passed away. His daughter found it, and 40 years later, with the work with Jonathan Tropper and Justin Lin, they developed it. And it's based in the 1870s when the Chinese were coming over to build the railroads and the Tong Wars, where they started in San Francisco.
So, Brett, you've been tasked with bringing Bruce Lee's manuscripts to life. What is that challenge like for you?
It's intimidating because, you know, you're coming onto a show that's part of Bruce Lee's legacy. And you really have to do it justice, because if you don't, it's going to be horrendous for you. So I'm happy that, you know, Bruce Lee was a big influence in my life. So his concepts and things he talked about in his martial arts and why he does certain things or his philosophies, I try to integrate that within the action, within each character, because each character is different. And so when they choreograph or we design the action for each character, their style is individual, but still keeping the elements of what Bruce Lee was trying to talk about when he's talking about the mixing of martial arts and how everything kind of helps each other. So thankfully, everyone was really happy. His daughter was really happy. His wife was really happy, and the audience seems to be happy with it. So I was very thankful. I had a fantastic team to make me look good, so it was a big part of it.
And I'm thinking about the individualism of, you know, the scenes, right? You're saying that each person you have to bring out, I guess, what the combination of the people are. You have to bring it out into the show with keeping in mind the intention of Bruce Lee. I think that's tremendous capacity.
It was just trying to keep, especially with this character, with Assam, the lead, trying to keep the ideas how Bruce Lee thinks about in movement in martial arts, but why he does something, why he doesn't do something, why he would do something as opposed to something else, and how he reacts to everything. And so that's like with his character with Assam, with Andrew Koji, who I discussed with him and see where he wants to take it, because he doesn't want to be Bruce Lee. Nobody can be Bruce Lee, and you can imitate him, but you can't ever be Bruce Lee. So we with Jonathan and with Shannon and Justin, you know, we kept a lot of Bruce Lee isms in between certain aspects, and to pay homage to him, and just with some of his key moments in some of his movies, in some of the moves of Andrew Cody's fighting. Everyone else is basically developed with that in mind, philosophy in mind, but they're all developed differently because of their, you know, how big they are, how small they are, their training, where they move from, what they're good at. Because if you have two guys, let's say one's really big, one's really small, who all train together, same instructor, everything like that, and if they execute the movements, they'll look differently because the bigger guy will utilize power differently, whereas the little guy will have to utilize to get the power differently. where the bigger guy will need to. So I have to translate that in the choreo, and in the movement
Yeah.
when they're moving. Otherwise, it just looks like everyone's just doing the same cool fights and it's all the same movement the whole time, and you have no individualism there for the characters.
I know whenever I see fight scenes in general, seems to the eye when watching the film, uh, there's danger there.
Well, I mean, it's all based on what's happening at that moment in the scene. He guy walks into an alley and there's like six guys there. Okay, well, there's danger, obviously, but he's a badass fighter, so things can happen. But now four of them have knives. Okay, well then now the element of danger changes because now we're not just playing for getting beaten up. Now we're and fights can end a lot faster if you have knives. So always having to keep the idea that no matter how good you are, that you can always get beaten, and that's by circumstance. Maybe if the character at the moment was totally focused, everything's fine in his life, he's probably no problem. But maybe he's got his sister on his mind, and he's got to get to her before she gets killed. So we have to fight these guys first to get through there. So then now you're creating depth to the fight and movements of what he would do.
Sure.
Then the danger comes into play.
You started your career doing these stunts. Have you ever gotten seriously injured?
On X-Men 2, I got burned really badly. My
Oh,
arms and my face, like second and third degree burns. That's like you can't get away from that healing process. That's a burn. It's probably the most pain I've kind of felt because
wow.
air air hurts you. Like you just can't you can't sleep, you can't lie down, you can't put your arms down. You gotta it just yeah. So that was one of my big injuries in there. Like one time on Nacho Libre, I got two second-degree sprained ankles in the ring in the middle of the fight, and you had to keep going until the fight was over.
Wow.
So yeah, there's been a few things.
I guess that's part of the training to go past it because obviously you keep coming back to do what your
Well,
passion is, right? And I'm thinking probably also through the journey, A-list actors might have gotten hurt. You worked with Tom Cruise on The Last Samurai, and I know that Tom does a lot of his own stunts. Were you ever concerned that he'd get injured?
Tom comes super prepared. I mean, we were training with him 6 months prior to the film, and he would come every day and do all the work to ensure that he does not get injured, or he does what the stuntmans were doing to train because he wanted to be prepared. Like example, he would put a tent in the middle of the New Zealand field. And I don't know if you know New Zealand at all, but if you're out in the sun, I think at a certain time without any sunblock, after like I think 23 seconds, you're burning already.
Wow.
So he put his tent out there and he put these big heaters in each corner of the tent, and he just blasted the heaters all day. And then he would show up and he wanted us to do the fight for 2 hours within these tents, but he would show up in full armor. And the reason why he did that is because he wanted to make sure that no matter how hard it got for him out there with the heat and the armor and the circumstance and the surroundings, explosions, the smokes, he wanted to make sure that he could always pull through and do it. And this guy, he's the consummate professional.
Yeah, I love that. Whenever I see somebody that loves the hard work,
Mhm.
and from what I've heard, he's one of those. You have over 160 film and TV credits. What is your favorite fight scene you've ever been in or choreographed?
Oh, well, one of the ones I really enjoyed was fighting Tom in The Last Samurai. It's part of
Mm,
the scene where he was in the forest waving the flag around. He's fighting like four or five samurai.
sure.
He kills me. And there was one moment he had to smash me in the back of the head, and the director's saying, smash him," and Tom's like, "No, I will not smash him." I said, "Tom, it's okay, just go." I put some padding in. He goes, "No, Brett." He goes, "This is a movie. I'm not going to potentially really hurt you." So Tom was fantastic, fantastic to work with, and yeah, he was great.
So you've clearly worked with A-list actors. Have you ever worked with A-list actresses?
I mean, yeah, I mean Jessica Alba, Jessica Biel, Halle Berry.
Mm.
I had a pretty good fight scene on Halle Berry on Catwoman.
How was that with Halle Berry?
She was good. I mean, she tried to do as much as she could. Obviously, her style they incorporate a lot of capoeira in it and stuff like that. And that's a very I mean, any martial arts is something you just can't pick up over like 4 months. if you want to look good and if you want to move good, you have to be training that all the time. And yeah, I mean, so she did have a double for that, but Halle Berry did a lot of it, and she was great, incredible. I remember walking in, and she put the Catwoman outfit on, and they're doing a photo shoot, and they literally didn't have to do any touch ups. She just walked in with the suit, and that was exactly what they shot was because she looked so good.
So, Brett, take me back to the beginning when you started in this industry. How did that happen?
I was actually going to school doing my pre-meds, and I was going to get into some kind of medical field of whether it was physio or whether it's medicine or whatever it was, because I was doing kinesiology and human kinetics, and I was a personal trainer. But I met this girl, and we were dating for a little bit, and she had her agency, and she said, "Would you like to be part of it?" I said, "Sure." And she got me in a commercial, and I was just like, "Oh, this is great." It was called the Karate Fighters. So I was the tattoo terror. There are those toys you put on those little sticks. You turn the stick, and the toys turn around and punch and kick. And then when you hit the other guy in the chest, and it flies off, and you win. It was that toy. So after that, I met some guys who were doing Ninja Turtles, the TV series for Fox. I got the part. Well, it's one of the bad guys for the series, and then it just snowballed from that point. I just kind of kept in it. I loved it. I enjoyed it, and you start to get into stunts, and then you start becoming a full-time stuntman. And then sometimes you branch off. You start coordinating or fight coordinating, depending. You can do both, depending on what kind of coordinator you are. And then from that point on, and you stay as a coordinator, or you can go off and start doing some secondary directing, which I started doing. And so I'm doing all the action, shooting all the action. And then you get into if it takes you that way, then I'm getting to directing now. So main unit directing, so full films.
Wow, that's really tremendous because I know it's probably a really competitive space.
Mhm.
Going from a stuntman to being a choreographer and a director, what were the key elements that you used in order to raise up to that point?
Second directing I got into because of the action and the choreo that I do, and creating the fights and the story within the fight. But to get into directing is even harder at that point because it's a whole new ballgame of people you have to talk to and a whole new ballgame of things you have to deal with as opposed to just dealing with the action. And one of the big things about a lot of directors who are action guys who go into directing, they have a hard time separating themselves from the action. So you have to try and focus on the drama of things, and then the action will gel into it afterwards. But I find that a lot of directors that come from action background, they just focus on the action and not enough of the drama. Whereas the action is really cool, it's very cool, it brings a lot to the table, but without the story and without these things that kind of gel it together, you kind of lose it. It just becomes like a fight show with nothing more in it.
When did you first start getting into martial arts in general, and what kind of martial arts did you study?
My dad got me into kung fu in the very beginning, 7 in the Philippines, and I was doing that for a little while, and then he got me into karate. So I was doing that for a little bit, and that's what I continued on, and I kept doing that, and Shotokan to be specific. Then I branched off into some Shito-ryu and Goju-ryu, and then I got my black belt taekwondo, and then from that point, I kind of went away from martial arts for a while because in the beginning it was for my dad. It was making me do it, and I had to give up basketball, I had to give up volleyball, I had to give up track. So it was all about just always doing martial arts like 6-7 days a week. And then afterwards, I came back to it. I came back to it of my own volition. So, and you start doing other things. You do Arnis, you start doing Silat, you start doing Muay Thai, you start doing boxing, you start doing all these things. And a lot of it is very influential from Bruce Lee because he always talked about taking the best aspects of different things and making it your own. There's no right or wrong movement for a defense or for an attack. It's really how you apply it, and it's how you think. So, and that's why taking the different martial arts was always kind of cool. And so once you reach a certain level at being a martial artist, your ability to adapt and pick things up from other martial arts is you have a higher aptitude at it. So, and that's what I just kept doing.
How do you apply a few things that you learn from martial arts kind of to your daily life?
Well, it's funny because, like you say, you talk about the samurai, how their code, and it's what they live by. And you apply martial arts because martial arts teaches you, to be respectful and honor and kind and just and always do the right thing. So they teach you all these principles to do things, and as long as you apply those in your daily life, it's enriching. Really, you can always tell someone, like a dancer or a martial artist or whatever it is, how they move, how they walk, how they pick up a cup, how they bend over to tie their shoelaces, you can just tell they have some kind of training. The directiveness of movement is always, with martial arts, it's very direct. So it's, with dance, it might not be, but it's how they move their hands or whatever it is. And you can tell that when you watch people, when they have certain mannerisms, and that usually comes from something, and mine comes from martial arts.
That's it's really amazing. So what's next for you, kind of next project do you have lined up?
I just finished Halo, the video game Halo, real adaptation to real life.
Wow.
There is a couple of projects on the rise, and I'm not allowed to really talk about just yet.
Yeah, sure.
Warrior Season 3 is definitely going, and that's next year. And there's also 2 movies that I'm attached to direct as the main unit director. One's to be shot in Thailand, called Foxhunt, and Joe Taslim is already attached to it. And we have a couple other casts we're reaching out to currently right now. And the other one is called 16, which we might shoot in South Africa, in Cape Town, which is about a body transference of a guy who was a vengeful spirit, and these guys killed his family in front of him, so his spirit went into the body of a 16-year-old boy, and he has to exact his revenge somehow. But being a 16-year-old boy, you can understand, the parameters of movement and skill are different. Also, when his spirit leaves, then the boy has to deal with whatever he's done to exact that revenge afterwards. So those are 2 things I'm looking at. There's a couple other projects that are on the rise right now. One shot in Canada, one shot in Los Angeles, one shot in Budapest. So just kind of waiting to see which one comes first and grab one.
That's pretty cool, actually, that you get to travel all over. So how could people learn more about you?
I started a stunt group called Hits International. So if you go to HITZ international.com, you'll see the many members, which is worldwide, and what we're all doing. There's also on social media, there's Hits Internationals on there, on both Facebook and Instagram. And, it's updated regularly, what we're kind of doing, what projects are coming up, what member is doing what. Because usually if I get a show abroad, I usually go through my roster of guys and I just pick guys. Kind of like G.I. Joe, for the mission. Okay, this show is a horse and a sandal and sword show. So I'll grab all my guys that are sword fighters and horse riders and all the jazz and put them on the show. Or this one's like an espionage, and okay, I get my fighters and guys that do these things. So therefore, I'm always constantly keeping the team working, and we're all constantly doing different things, which is always cool. Have our members all around the world.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. And I want to really thank you, Brett, for coming on the show. Really super cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Common Denominator. Next week, we'll keep the showbiz theme going and chat with Kramer from Seinfeld. Not the actor who played him, the actual guy, Kenny Kramer. He'll tell us how he became the inspiration for one of the most famous characters of all time, and how he parlayed that into a bus tour, multiple TV gigs, and a mayoral run. Get ready to laugh with the K-Man. Until then, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Common Denominator podcast. Join us next week for another inspiring, impactful, and empowering conversation. To learn more about Moshe, head to MoshePopack.com. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it. And we'd be grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the show.